Imagine roaming rural France to be captured by a satanic killer to be sacrificed in the most grotesque and macabre death possible. Let me tell you about Gilles de Rais. The renowned aristocrat and dedicated soldier Gilles de Rais lived in the 15th century. The extraordinary service as a warrior in the Hundred Years' War, devoting his life to protecting France from the English kingdom, and helped his country win the Hundred Years' War, and as a companion in arms of the Joan of Arc would have been sufficient to ensure his mark in history, even if the Breton aristocrat Gilles de Rais had not been especially unique. Ultimately, however, those accomplishments are still only viewed in light of the hidden life he led as the malefactor of more than 100 horrifying child massacres and sinister supernatural rites, a spree that makes him a candidate for the inaugural recorded serial murderer in history. Tragic events shaped Gilles de Rais' early life. Both of his parents passed away around the year of 1415. His mother, Marie de Crone, passed away of an undetermined reason, and his father, Guy de Laval, was slain in a grisly hunting disaster that de Rais may have been in company. John de Crone, his maternal grandpa, then reared him and nurtured him. De Rais appears to have been impulsive and headstrong as a young man, traits that served him well on the battleground where, by all indications, he was a skillful and courageous fighter. He was given the task of maintaining a close eye on Joan of Arc in warfare by the Dauphin who would later become Charles VII when she came into the picture in 1429. The Siege of Orleans was one of the important clashes they participated in together throughout her brief career. He was given the greatest military honor bestowed upon France when he was named Marshal of France in 1429. On May 30, 1431, in the city of Rouen, the English seized Joan of Arc and burnt her alive. De Rais persisted in his military career and in 1435 commanded the French army to a resounding victory over England. For 3 years, cruelly, he had already been murdering innocent children. After Joan of Arc's demise in 1431, his military career started to unwind, and he started investing more time at his opulent farm in western France. De Rais dissipated his wealth carelessly, spending vast sums on embellishments, servants, and a sizable military entourage in addition to commissioning art and literary works. Others in his family, like his grandfather, who adamantly bequeathed his sword and armor to Gilles' younger brother René when he passed away in 1432, were enraged by his selling of family estates to support his lavish lifestyle. De Rais appears to have become more preoccupied with spirituality and his personal redemption in latter years. He paid for the building of a church in 1433, where he named it the Chapel of the Holy Innocents, and which was populated. Ominously, in light of de Rais' crimes, with a boys' choir chosen by de Rais himself, de Rais wasted a lot of extravagant spending and poor investments, such as a play on Joan of Arc and the Siege of Orleans with 150 actors. He did this for the happiness of his soul. He also looked into the supernatural in an effort to salvage his fast dwindling funds, hiring a slew of mystics and alchemists in the process. He prepared ceremonies involving child dismemberment and human sacrifice on the advice of neighborhood sorcerers, hoping to summon demons to restore his financial stability. So, what do you think of Gilles de Rais so far? How do you think you would feel if your child suddenly went missing begging for food, only to find their mangled corpse sodomized by a former respected hero? Well, if you liked the video so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Oh, and before we continue, viewer discretion is advised with graphic descriptions of child members. Gilles de Rais preyed on both males and girls between the ages of 6 and 18, but for some reason, he preferred killing boys. Their kidnappers would drive them to a remote location where Rais would stop them nude. Then, he tormented, raped, and then hanged them from a hook with ropes. De Rais frequently claimed to merely want to play with the kids. After being pleased, Rais would either murder them himself or give orders to his companions to do so. He utilized a number of methods to murder his victims, but the braquemard, a short, double-edged sword, was mostly frequently used to slice their throats, decapitate them, or mutilate them. As their lives slowly drifted into the abyss, the Ray would frequently sit on their tummies. He would kiss the victims after he had killed them and then dismember them to admire their inside organs and limbs. Gilles occasionally even had intercourse with the dismembered remains of his victims, and they would be either burned or buried to dispose of their corpses. In the meanwhile, rumors had started to spread like a disease. The majority of the abductions of children in the district surrounding the Rais castles appeared to be related to the actions of de Rais and his personnel. Some of his victims' parents would have been really oblivious of their children's circumstances, since it was normal for young boys to be permanently removed from their families if they were brought on by aristocrats as slaves or pages. When Gilles de Rais' slaves were questioned by secular lawmen, they acknowledged to kidnapping children for him and saying that he would molest and masturbate on the boys before chopping their heads off. De Rais allegedly practiced alchemy, was enamored with the dark arts, and utilized the limbs of victims in his ceremonies, according to two French clergymen. Additionally, other servants from nearby towns came forward to give evidence that their kids had vanished after begging close to the Rais castle. When de Rais agreed to all the accusations, the court decided it was unnecessary to torture him into confessing, while it was revealed during de Rais' trial that the witnesses had seen his servants disposing of the bodies of numerous children at one of his castles in 1437. His murderous tendencies may have been somewhat known in other areas, but the families of the victims were prevented from taking legal action against him due to fear and low social standing. After a quarrel unconnected to the killings in September 1440, de Rais abducted a priest and was subsequently apprehended. Following that, he was put on trial simultaneously in ecclesiastical and civil court for a number of crimes, including heresy, sodomy, and the massacre of more than 100 children. De Rais admitted to the allegations under fear of torture and gave details of ritualistically abusing scores of youngsters over the course of nearly 10 years who had been taken by his minions. De Rais was convicted of criminal homicide and engaging in an unnatural vice with minors after a 5-day trial. On October 26, 1440, the punishment, his execution by simultaneously burning and hanging, was carried out at Nantes. De Rais had demonstrated humility and composure in the face of death. While there is no concrete evidence of how many children he murdered, the majority of people think it was between 100 and 200. However, others have said it may have been as high as 600. Strangely, this led to him receiving praise as a role model for Christian penitence after his death. Even after his passing, a 3-day abstinence was kept. In one last sickening irony, it became customary for parents in Nantes to spank their kids on the anniversary of de Rais' execution, possibly to make them understand the seriousness of the crimes for which he had atoned. Revisionists today have disputed the possibility that de Rais was actually not responsible for the acts for which he was put to death, pointing out that his confession was forced under fear of torture. However, the majority of the historians who have studied the testimony from the Rais trial remain convinced that he actually carried out the murders. In addition to the lack of any concrete proof of de Rais' guilt, the Duke of Brittany, who handled the prosecution of the case, ended up inheriting all of de Rais' property titles after his death. This is cited by some historians as proof of political plot. To retry de Rais fairly, a French Freemason organized the trial in 1992, and the court, which was made up of French ministers, lawmakers, and UNESCO specialists, examined all the evidence and returned a not guilty judgment. Until new information proving de Rais' culpability is revealed, it will remain difficult to know the truth. However, Gilles de Rais will probably continue to be a controversial but significant character in French history more than 500 years after his demise. And with that, do you think Gilles de Rais was innocent? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.